Welcome back to the Muster Point podcast Beyond the Wire. Today I'm joined by Dean, a former sapper, a bloke who once fell out the back of a Chinook and got medically launched into Civvy Street the classical way, ordered to play a game of rugby, 1 crunching tackle, 3 ruptured discs, and cheers for your service off your pop. Dean didn't sulk though. He served with the police, stared down illness, harnessed his ADHD superpower and built SquaddyBox, a simple, secure mail pod that gives homeless veterans and blue light workers a real postal address so they can register with a GP, claim benefits and actually move forward. It's elegant, it's practical and it's already working. How do you get one in your town? What sites work? And why does an address change everything? Right, put a brew on and let's crack on. So, Dean from SquaddyBox on the Muster Point Beyond the Wire podcast. Thank you for joining us today to share what you're doing for the veteran community. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me. I very much appreciate it.
Excellent. A former sapper. So tell us a bit about your service. Tell us about what you got up to in the glorious corps of Royal Engineers.
So I joined up in end of '94, very long time ago now. Did about 4 or 5 years. Sadly, towards the end of that career, I was medically discharged. But during that time, I was based up at, obviously did all the training regiments, and then went up to 5-1, which was 5-1 Air Mobile. Those who recall, it was never Air Mobile at the time, but they wanted to be desperately. I know they are now. I spent time with them. I was then deployed to the Falklands for about 3 months, I remember. That was interesting, fascinating place, and I'd love to go back.
Yeah. Where was 5-1?
5-1 was at Ripon.
Oh, Ripon. Okay.
Yeah, so it was, get this right, 3-6 was it, regiment? Can't remember now. 3-6. No.
So I was
yeah.
part of 3-9 Engineer Regiment, but my squadron, 10 Squadron, was based up at RAF Lehman, just up the road from Ripon, and we done our role was air support.
No, everyone was desperate to be Air Mobile, but we ended up being, there was a running joke that we were DAF Mobile, because we used to deploy out the back of a DAF everywhere. We did get some Air Mobile training type scenarios, but we never did any sort of the para stuff, which I know they do now. Especially out in the Falklands, we spent a lot of time, flying around in Chinooks and being dropped off on exercises and various other things, which was great. Some of it was quite hair-raising. When I say dropped out the back of a Chinook, I remember one time they actually threw us out the back of a Chinook, and the Chinook was on an angle like that, and we were on a hillside, and it was like belts released, and everyone fell out the arse end. It was like, here we go, guys, and you got no choice. Awesome exercises. Learnt a lot about myself out there. I was definitely not the best person at doing tabbing. Hated tabbing with a vengeance, but by the time I got back from there, I could tab with the best of them. I could never get my head round it. It never made any sense tabbing everywhere when we had perfectly good serviceable vehicles. It was never the logic for that. Especially when they dropped us off in the first place and picked us up. It was like, but I understood the picture, and it made sense. But we did that.
Did you ever trade in the Royal Engineers?
Yes, so I trained as a plumber.
Okay.
I was pre-qualified as a plumber before I went in, which was quite advantageous. To the point whereby when we went to trade training at Chatham, I was helping the instructors as well, because I was already pre-qualified anyway. So when I say helping, we were doing a lot of lead work and stuff like that, and I was already good at bashing lead anyway. So I sort of helped guide some of the other guys on our team at the time, and I was really good at doing the old copper work as well. So I used to do some really intricate type setups with copper and
I bet the instructors loved you down there.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. So it was brilliant. So but
the question is, when you got to your unit, how much plumbing did you do?
Bugger all. So absolutely nothing. The closest we came was when we was in the Falklands, and I think for about 4 weeks or something we were on the reserve forces type scenario, and we allegedly responsible for the wastewater. And that was about the closest I ever got to doing any type of plumbing. We didn't do anything. We were in reserves. If it ever kicked off, we were going to take over the wastewater systems on the island.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was about it. But I always felt it was really bizarre because you got a serious amount of seriously trained individuals there who could do so much more, and I always felt that, why don't we use the engineers to actually sort the camps out?
Yeah.
It would have been, the trade training and the actual ongoing training would have been immense. But no, we have to get contractors in and pay them 10 times as much and all this sort of stuff, which was bloody stupid, especially when you had things that were faulty. Yeah. So, but yeah, anyway, can't change that one.
So you mentioned you got medically discharged.
So,
how did that come about?
Well, so when we got back from Falklands, we were ordered to play rugby.
Ordered?
Oh yeah, we ordered. You're playing rugby, guys, and you did what you're told then.
Yeah.
And now I don't know what it's like now, but what you're told to do something, you did it. You were ordered. If you were ordered to go out drinking on Thursday night, you went out drinking on Thursday night. If you were ordered to play rugby, you played rugby. And that was the sort of mentality there. Though it was work hard, play hard. Couldn't tell you anything about the rugby game. All I know is I woke up bouncing along in the back of a Land Rover, taken to the med centre. Given the old typical ibuprofen, neck brace, sit there and wait. I sat there for hours. Eventually, a doctor turned up, a civvy doctor. He sort of claimed I was all right. Took me down the med centre. Took me down the Ripon Hospital, which was like the oldest hospital in the world at the time. Clearly, they sat me waiting around for hours. Gave me an X-ray. Said, "Oh, you're fine." And that was it. The X-ray of my neck. That's all they did. So I got, unfortunately at that point, they stuck me on a sick chit, as they did, because I said, look, there's something not right here. My back's really, really hurting. There's something wrong. And I get massive pains. And then over a period of probably best part of a year, they eventually sort of had sent me down to Frimley Court at the time, loads of MRI scans, and it turned around I'd actually ruptured 3 discs.
Bloody hell.
And that explains why I was in so much bloody pain.
Yeah.
So that point then they weren't quite sure what to do. They sent me on trade training, oddly enough, because they just didn't know what to do at the time. So I was sort of downgraded on trade training. Did all that lot. We did the plumbing and everything else. Loved it. Nobody said a word. They were happy to go through. So I was on doing all less activity. Then got transferred over to 3-8 Maidstone.
Yeah.
Best in my fault. I was just carrying on normal jogging sort of thing. I was downgraded, but carrying on working. When I was at Maidstone, I was attached to 20 Squadron. And then, so I was, 20 Squadron was my parent squadron, but I was attached to 50 Squadron.
Yeah.
And I was in the TQM department. So my boss was a major, and my colleagues in there were all warrant officers and fantastic people. And I spent a couple of years in there, and nobody ever said anything. It was bizarre. Then suddenly, I got to a point. I got a letter one day saying we're going to have to medically discharge you. I was like, right, okay. I've been sat here for years and no one's been bothered. So you know what? So
in that period of time, did you have any surgery or anything?
No.
So you're just,
nothing like that.
As you said, normal jogging. Yeah. Like with what was it? 2 or 3 ruptured discs.
Yeah. Massive pain all the time on permanent painkillers. Yeah, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it was bizarre, and it was just surreal when you think back. Because I was really, really suffering quite badly. And they just said, "Oh yeah, you got ruptured discs." It was that mentality. Oh, it'll probably sort itself, sort of thing. It's like, and I didn't understand it at the time, and I was quite young. I was like, well, okay, right, whatever. So I carried on this sort of in the engineers, and then literally I went for Major Hemingway, who was my boss at the time, turned around and said, "Oh, I've got a letter through. You got a med board tomorrow." So, okay, so what does that mean? He said, "Oh, we're going to have a chat, give you some idea what's going on, and then probably 3-6 months down the line, they'll make a decision, and then they might have to medically discharge you." So, fair enough then. So I went for this med board, and it was like on a Thursday. I had the med board, and they said, "Oh, we're going to discharge you tomorrow."
And how long after was this? From you originally getting that letter to being discharged?
Yeah.
How long was that?
Same week.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got the letter on the Monday. I had the med board on the Thursday, and I was being told I was out on the Friday.
And how old were you?
It was probably my 29 smart, 30 smart.
Okay. And how
Yeah.
did that leave you feeling?
Really, really bizarre and sort of in a shock. Luckily, we'd bought a house up in Lincoln. So that at least I had that bit. That sort of been really screwed. But what they did turn around is we sort of Biff Hemingway, my boss, he did actually grip it for me and turned around and spoke to quite a few people and said, actually, no, you're not going to kick him out literally the next day. So they put me on gardening leave because this was early in the year. I think it was like March, April time in the year. And they put me on gardening leave till September.
Yeah.
So they gave me, because it was MD, they gave me full resettlement, which was, to be honest, back then it was crap.
Yeah.
It's not much better now, but this slipped in quite well. So my resettlement, I started looking into security, because we'd been doing some work I've been talking to the police locally in Maidstone on a job that was going on at the time, and some reason I ended up being like a liaison for them for the camp. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Because I was in the technical department and they thought we were technical, but I wasn't at that point. I'd done some work in security and stuff, but not a lot, only alarms and that. But anyway, I went to retrade into doing security work by means of technical stuff. So I wanted to do CCTV and stuff like that. And I'd found out at the time around a specialist department within the police called the Technical Support Unit. And their job, or my job as it later ended up being, was to deploy covert video cameras, tracking, all that sort of stuff. Basically to do any technical means to catch the bad guy and support the police. So,
and this was up at Lincolnshire.
It was, yeah, that's right, yeah. So I started this mission where I wanted to do that job. It was really fascinating. So I started. So I trained in CCTV. Looked for local jobs and work, and I then trained in mechanics. I then trained in vehicle electrical mechanics as well, and eventually a job came up in Lincolnshire Police, and it was for the video editing suite. So I applied for it, and when I had the interview, they said to me, actually, the job's not for the video editing suite. That's now changed. What we are looking for is somebody who could work in our technical support unit, deploying covert systems. It was like, that's what I wanted. That's a gift. That's exactly what I wanted.
Yeah.
But I still didn't fully understand what the nitty gritty detail of that was at the time, because they never really talked about it. Nowadays it's quite open about what they do. So I went there, and then I spent the next sort of 9-10 years doing that.
Just out of interest, I mean, you said we'd bought a house up in Lincolnshire, so I'm guessing you were married when you was down at Maidstone in the forces. Was you married and living on the patch, or? Yes. So how that started off. So when I did my basic at Basingbourne, as it was, and then when on the day we passed off, I asked my girlfriend at the time, who I'm married to now, to marry me. She said yes. I was then deployed. Then I went to Ripon, as I said, and then deployed to the Falklands, where she sorted it all out. And when I got back, we got married. Okay. So literally, in days of getting back and being injured, I was married, sort of thing. Yeah.
It was bizarre. It was all quite surreal. I'm
just wondering so obviously you got put on gardening leave, and you were fortunate that you'd purchased a house up in Lincolnshire, but I was wondering what effect that had on you and your wife as a family unit. Did you have kids at the time, or?
Yes. So when I was based in Maidstone, my daughter was born at what was the old Chatham Hospital, and I suppose I knew I was going to get discharged at some point in the back of my mind. Hence why we'd bought the house, because I couldn't realistically, having conversations with people, I couldn't realistically see how they were going to keep me in. Because I couldn't have been deployed. And I think it was only by the fact that I was doing such a good job in the TQM's department that the Biff kept me there. I had some really bizarre jobs, while I was there, and some really nice people. So I think, in hindsight, it was like I knew it was coming, So it didn't have as much effect on me as it had done. And because I joined in later life anyway, where I hadn't joined the army till I was sort of like in my mid-20s. So I'd already had jobs and stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So I hadn't gone from being that never working, institutionalized, and then being kicked out scenario. I'd gone from a working military, then back to working. So the transition wasn't as bad as I've seen with other people.
Yeah, I guess that's so lucky, like that you've got that civilian life experience prior.
Yeah.
Because I just, what I'm hearing is like, well, you think moving house, losing a job are two of the biggest stresses on a human can experience. But and I'm guessing your daughter must have been very young at the time, and to have that stress put on you, like, well, it's I think it's testament that you, by the sounds of it, you dealt with it as best as you could. Like,
well, yeah, because it was also that you know, obviously injured as well. They still didn't thoroughly know what was up with my. You know, they said I had ruptured discs, but I later found out in later life that actually I got spinal damage as well. You know, and at the moment now I'm more broken than ever. I've got nerve damage in most of my body now. You know, it's only my right arm and my sort of main torso that's got no nerve damage in it. You know, I've got numbness in my legs and my waist and my arms and my face and everywhere. You know, and it seems to be progressing.
Yeah.
And that started about 4 years ago. You know, I'm fighting that all the time and on painkillers all the time again. But obviously that was I had a very long period where I was okay. So between 2000 and sort of 2020, I was doing. I say okay. I was in pain a lot, but I was used to it.
Yeah.
And because of the medication I took, it sort of that it was always there in the background niggling at me. I always knew I had to be very careful. You know, they say the phrase "glass back." I literally did have that potential of a glass back, which could go at any time, and it did eventually, unfortunately. But I have to say that I went to Headley Court for 6 months when they discharged me, and that was phenomenal. That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's changed a lot since then, but the people there were amazing. They did everything you can. I came out there like a bleeding racing snake.
Yeah.
You know, I could run faster than I'd ever done before I even joined when I was in the army. It was ridiculous. You know. So
you went to Headley Court. So you stood in front of the med board, right? You're getting medically discharged.
Yeah.
But they put it. There was. Well, by the sounds of it, it was very good. So, but they tried as best as they could to. So when you hit Civvy Street, you were healthy as best as possible, or do you think they could?
Yes.
Do you think they could have done more? Or
well, my understanding is it wasn't them that organised the Headley Court. The Headley Court came about through contacts in the regiment. That's my belief. That's what I was led to believe.
Yeah.
And you know, it was my boss at the time who fought for it, and said, "Look, you need to go here. You need to do that." And then it was a bit of a whirlwind type time, really. I struggle to remember a lot of it, and that's not because of what happened then. Is because of something I've got now that I'm having a few cognitive problems nowadays as well. But yeah, it was just brilliant. I had every sort of therapy that was going, cranial and hydro and freaking anything you could name it. It had a word therapy in it. They went through it all. You know, and I God knows how many MRI scans I've had over the years. You know, it's ridiculous amount of MRI scans I've had, and yeah, it was. I came out there really fit to the point where I was doing training for like half marathons and stuff like that. Probably stupid really doing it because it was like don't push it, but I was doing you know, but I suppose it was proving a point as well, you know. And initially I didn't, but sort of later on I was desperate to get back in. I'd never wanted to leave. I've never wanted to leave, and you know since then I've you know, I've done stuff with Army cadets and Air cadets, and I've tried to join the reserves again. I've tried to join certain special units in the reserves again. I'm now completely can't anymore because I'm now at the 53 barrier where that's it, index now. You've got no chance at all now.
Yeah.
You know, desperately wanted to serve all the time, And I don't know if that's a mentality whereby I feel that like you said earlier on when we had, about, do I feel I let them down and I didn't do what I should, I didn't do everything I could have done,
Yeah.
And I've had friends who have left in the last couple of years who were on my card when we joined, who have done a long time, and don't get me wrong, they're doing well, but actually when I look back, I did pretty well myself. I had a bloody good job in the place.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that. I know that made a massive difference. I helped. I didn't catch them personally, but I know what the work I did went towards catching some really, really bad people, and
it sounds that, and just say his name again, your boss in Maidstone.
Biff Hemingway.
It sounds like,
sorry,
the fact, I mean, obviously from you personally, that you had that civilian life experience prior to the forces, combined with his looking out for you.
Yeah.
Because I'm making up, without that, you could have been another squaddie or another veteran that fell through the cracks, because by the sounds of it, your unit or the MOD they didn't care. They just wanted rid of you.
Yeah. And sadly then as well, I don't know when you came out, but British Forces resettlement then was diabolical. Every man in his beast was sort of like bleeding or milking what was the it's LCAS, isn't it? But what the version of LCAS back then, a lot of them realised they can make a lot of money out of charging for hotels and all sorts of stuff, and making a fortune out of courses that weren't real.
Yeah,
I know they've tightened it up massively over the years since, but they were milking it out. I went to do a CCTV course that had zero value in any qualification at all.
Yeah.
Allegedly under the University of Lincoln, which they didn't even recognise it.
Yeah.
And $2.5 grand was spent, but don't get me wrong, the guy who ran it was really good, but the company who paid him to do it were crap.
Yeah.
They were just in it for the money. And I learned a lot about CCTV, which is great, and it gave me a good standing, but it had no qualification value at all.
Yeah, I know Steve, my co-founder of the Muster Points, he left in 2010. His resettlement, he done like digger driver qualifications, turned up at us to get a civvy job, and they were like, yeah, they're not valid, and basically had to pay for the entire course again, but with the proper certification. I was quite unfortunate that I got injured, but I went and the fact that I went from the front line of Nadi Alley to being a civilian in 6 months, like the med board told me to soldier on, but I'd already handed my cards in prior to deploying to Afghan. So I had no therapy, no counselling, no transition, no integrating with the blokes, because they were either still on tour or on post-tour leave. Yeah. Yes, I got my massive Armed Forces compensation scheme payout, but I was just left with loads of anger, resentment, and every bitter emotion underneath the sun against what happened to me. And fortunately, my trade in the engineers was an engineering surveyor, so I had a HND, and once I sort of started getting back on track, I'd done that. But yeah, I never used my learning credits, because of when I looked into it, the qualification I already had was too high, as it were. Like, it was like, oh, you're already qualified, it's all right. It's like, well,
yeah, which is a crock.
So anyway, you do the police.
Yeah.
And what led you to leaving the police? Because by the sounds of it, you'd found home again, because there's a lot of links between the blue light services and the armed forces. But sorry, go on.
Sadly, the police started changing quite drastically around that time. So when I first went into the police, I was a civvy. I did have a warrant card, but only from a protection perspective. So we used to joke about it was from an insurance perspective. So if we were ever on a job and you got challenged, you held the card, or at least if you got shot, your wife got paid out. and that was the reality. That was the truth. That was what's scary about it. Because we were going after serious people, OCGs, paedophiles, the lot. You know, and crawling around in fields in the middle of the night, deploying covert camera systems. There's a pretty high risk that someone's going to get hold of you. You got a brilliant team around you, but it was a combination of several things. There was a particular officer that for some reason didn't like me. I never got to the bottom of it. And I think, hindsight, I think because I'm neurodiverse, I've got ADHD, it seems to, people seem to have taken advantage of it. And because I'm too honest to a fault, he took advantage of that. And I don't want to say I was bullied. I was. I suppose the reality of it was, I was sort of bullied out of that Lincolnshire Police, realistically. And I had a nervous breakdown. I never knew what a nervous breakdown was. I discovered, literally, I was in the office one day, and then I was in the ambulance. And what happened in between being in the office, I don't know. I'd shut down. I was off for a period of time, and eventually, through lots of conversations and stuff, I ended up resigning and leaving because it was just too much.
Yeah.
Having stupid things happen all the time, and I'm over that. I want to move on from that. And I learned a lot. It taught me a lot, and it was good. And I then sort of got offered a really good opportunity down south in Brighton, and I went to work for a company there, and I was helping them work with local councils and local police catch fly tippers and stuff like that. And I also did a massive contract with the Environment Agency as well, and we deployed cameras to prevent flood prevention, and saved them millions of pounds. And I enjoyed that. I dropped into varied jobs whereby they gave me challenges to understand, and I was really good at working out solving problems. And I know that's because I've got ADHD. I could visualize things really fast and solve a problem when people just couldn't get it. And I didn't know I had ADHD at the time. There's the irony of it all. I just knew I was good at solving problems. From there, he sort of tried to change the direction of the business, and it didn't do very well. I was headhunted then to work for BAE Systems. I went to work for BAE Systems over at Waterlooville, and they had a specialist unit where we worked with organisations and did what I was doing when in the police, basically, but we taught them. Did that for a few years. Again, BAE unfortunately felt that the business unit I was working for weren't making enough money. We were turning over millions of pounds, but it wasn't enough. We realised that BAE stands for big and expensive. We weren't big and expensive enough, unfortunately. They looked at varied things to sell the unit. Eventually, they shut us down. I then met with a guy, and we set up company. Did that for 10 years. And then in January this year, that sort of came to an end. Not amicably, unfortunately. But most of last year, I was really ill with Lyme disease, and that's really bad, and I really don't want that. However, the irony was, because I had Lyme disease, they discovered I had cancer as well. And literally, if I hadn't had Lyme disease, they wouldn't have found out I had cancer, which is bizarre, I know, but it was that sort of like gift.
Yeah.
They sorted the cancer out eventually, which was great, but by which time I was then out of a job, which brought me to January this year. But during that time when I was ill last year, which will lead on potentially where you're going to go to, is how did SquaddyBox come about?
Yeah.
And basically, during that time last year, I was going to the Breakfast Club locally. Another engineer, Ian Neville, who runs the Breakfast Club locally, he introduced me to a homeless guy who was trying to get PIP, and we could not get it sent anywhere at all. He couldn't get, he had to have the physical document to fill in and all this sort of stuff. And eventually we managed to get it sent to the job centre. But he lost loads of money because it delayed it so many months. He'd probably lost 4 or 5 grand because of it being delayed so much. And me being me, it was like, this is ridiculous. Why can we not? There's got to be an easier way of him getting this mail. So I did a lot of research and discovered that reality is, everybody tells you, oh yeah, you can do this, you can have the mail diverted here, you can have all like that. You can if you have an address. If you have an address, you can do anything you like. If you don't have an address, you can't get anything from anywhere. And so how do you create an address? And that's what I started investigating. And I found multiple different ways of doing it. There was the post office who would forward your mail, but forward your mail to where? If you haven't got an address, where does it go to? A few banks tried doing it, but you had to have a bank account. But you can't have a bank account unless you've got an address.
Yeah.
So there's no logic in that. So after a lot of toing and froing, we eventually came up with the name SquaddyBox. That was an argument in its own right. We came up with the logo SquaddyBox, but we also came up with the concept SquaddyBox. So the concept of SquaddyBox is that we have a physical mailbox, a bit like the Amazon Dropbox type things, on the side of a building. Ours is our first one was installed at the side of a GP surgery. It's nondescript. It's just, grey in colour, sits there, minds its own business. Nobody really knows what it is other than the people who need to know what it is. And the logic behind that is that nobody gets targeted. And that is now the postal address for the individuals that we're working with. So their address will be their name, SquaddyBox 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, care of that surgery. And that's their address. Which means then they can now register with the surgery as well because they've got an address. They can now claim benefits. And it rolls on. But it's also that self-enabler as well because they can do it themselves. They've now got their address. They can now claim for all these things. They can now get off their rears if they need that kick up the arse to say, look, you've got an address now. Start sorting yourself out. If they want us to help them, we can do that. We've got friends who can help them with PIP, friends who can help them sort with benefits. So that's sort of where we are.
Yeah. So how? Because I'm curious about. Because having worked into construction on new build development sites, I vaguely understand the process that obviously a postal address has to be registered with obviously the post office. So how does that work? Is it just a case of, so say the building that you're attaching your post box to is 1 Smith Road?
Yeah.
How? I just tell, maybe.
Well, it's bizarre. So I spoke to the people at the sorting office, and they said, "Just tell us where the box is, and we'll make sure the mail goes in the box."
Okay.
It's like, is it that simple? He went, well, yeah, because the postman's going to go there, he's going to deliver it. He's either going to take it into the surgery, and they're going to say it's the box on the wall outside, or he's going to know it's the box on the wall outside.
Yeah. And
it was like, surely it can't be that simple. And he went, well, it is, because you don't really register. Yet. The registering of an address literally is telling the sorting office where this location is, and it was that, if there's more complex ways of doing this, yet no one's told me.
Yeah.
At the moment we've got this box on the side of the wall. The people are getting their mail. The postman knows that if it says SquaddyBox on it, it goes in that box, and each box has SB1 to SB6 on it. That's the extent of it. So, it's.
That's simple. Maybe I'm overthinking it.
And I think that's what the problem's been for many years. Lots of people do overthink it, and maybe we are missing a trick. I don't know, but nobody said anything.
So what?
I've asked the question.
So you said the first one went on a surgery.
Yeah.
What? How many have you got around the country?
So we've literally only got one at the moment.
Okay.
So we are. Our second one's been made already. We've been asked if it can be deployed in Swansea, and now this goes back to one goes back. I'll say go back. The question we're asked is, how do we know where people are? And that's the problem. We don't know where people are, and I know we've spoken in the past about how do we find where people are.
Yeah,
and that's the key thing I need from people. If you're watching this and you are aware of a homeless squaddie in your area, we can't solve it straight away. What we can do is work with you and work with the locals to get a box established in the area. And our boxes have 6 post boxes in what we call the pod. So we can at least then support 6 homeless veterans in the area. When we say veterans as well, we also deal with blue light services. So that's anybody who's fire brigade, anything blue light related, NHS related, Coast Guard, that type of thing. Because they're part of the services. Any public facing service in that scenario, we will help support.
Yeah.
So then that gives them an address, and whereby what is the definition of homeless for us is anybody who doesn't have a continuous fixed address. They're either sofa surfing, living in a static van, which I know other people have done in the past, living in a mobile home, living in the back of a van, living in a tent, or something like that. And even if you have a job and you don't have a fixed address, we will help you.
Yeah.
You know, it's about giving you that stable address to enable you then to be able to be more proactive in supporting your life. So,
because I think it's, well, like there's so much that you can't do without a postal address.
It's crazy.
And I worked with a client that was sofa surfing, and his benefits was getting paid to his sister.
Yeah.
And that relationship was very toxic. So it sort of it brought, and when I met with him, you could just see him like nowhere to turn, because everything was being controlled by his sister. And as I said, that relationship wasn't good, and there was a lot of as we said, like it stops you from doing a lot of stuff, particularly with the benefits. Now, I think when we first spoke, and this comes down to a postcode lottery, which pisses me off. So the Armed Forces champion within the DWP in Hertfordshire is an amazing bloke, and he, for the guy I was supporting, actually made his address his local job centre. But he even said, like, it's not supposed to be done. He's sort of pushing the boundaries of what he's allowed to do. But because I mean, he's the Armed Forces champion, he's like, I don't care, I'll do it. But I guess if you haven't got that sort of person that's willing to make those moves, then what do you do? And so how would, first, how would somebody, what are you relying on? Are you relying on the veteran that's homeless, or the support services coming to you and saying, look, we've got 3 homeless veterans in our area, we want to set something up with you? Or both? I guess both. Like as long as
it is. The reality is we're relying on networking through all the organisations. So we sort of, I came up with a bit of a bizarre, maybe it's a bizarre strategy of how we started. We started by networking like mad. So we networked with as many organisations as we initially could to try and get the message out there about who we are, with the view that then they would hopefully then feed back in the information we needed to find the people. We're now sort of now running 2 parallel sides now, where we're trying to raise money, which we're not doing particularly brilliantly at it. We're still self-funding. We've got a bit of a crowdfunder out there, but it's, you know, hundreds of people say it's a brilliant idea, but unfortunately very few donate to it.
Yeah.
But it's going to go on. We're going to carry on doing this whatever happens, you know, even if we have to self-fund it ourselves. But the question really is, how do we find the people, or how do the people find us? So when we're out there and we see anybody, we'll give them a card, and I'll ask them to contact their local centre or whatever and get them to give me a ring. If I meet anybody from any breakfast clubs, I give them a card. We are pushing out on Facebook to as many breakfast clubs that we can do, and we're going to send a form out, which I'm going to, you know, I know we've previously discussed that I'm going to send you a copy of the form and then try and get that out to as many breakfast clubs as well. You know, I've reached out to our MP to try and understand how many homeless veterans there are across the UK, and already the figures don't add up, you know.
But interestingly, and I spoke to you, I said earlier about working for Drug and Alcohol Service, and we've got an outreach team that work with rough sleepers, and because to be homeless by government definition, obviously you can be street homeless, you could be sofa surfing, you could be living in a static caravan, you could be at risk of eviction in the next 52 days. Yeah. But when we're talking about actual street homeless people, how do you quantify that? And I'm very aware local authorities do, or some local authorities try their best to calculate that, and organisations like the one I work for. But the lengths they have to go to physically see somebody bedding down for the night and go, right, yeah, because you may see somebody collecting on the street, but then they may go, well, there's a lot of street homeless people that do have accommodation. So it is a case of how do we identify that, or what is the right statistic?
The problem,
because I don't think anybody knows.
no, and the biggest problem you've got is GDPR and data protection. People can't tell you, so you can't. So
Yeah.
it's. However, you could. I believe there's an argument to say that actually there's a safeguarding argument there, because, you know, I can't tell you his name because he's homeless, right? Well, actually, he's homeless, and actually now it's a safeguarding risk. So we could argue, you could tell us. So, you know, but people won't break that thing, even though, you know, reality is not a lot of people do a great deal about it, you know. But I would like to try, and I don't know how we did this, but I would like to try and get the funding, be it through lottery or whatever, to do a national type survey, working with the ground crews like the breakfast clubs and everybody else, to try and draw in as much information as we can, and through British Forces resettlement people we're trying to work with, and they're really good, to try and understand how many veterans come out every year who are at risk of being homeless.
Oh yeah.
So our hopeful plan is try and get ahead of it by we're trying to get the support and funding through partners at the moment to attend all of the British Forces resettlement shows that are coming up over the next 12 months. That way we get in front of people before they get out, which then gives them the information that they're aware of who we are and what we can do, and hopefully that we could build that network then, that if you are getting out and you might remember, oh, I remember SquaddyBox, you know, hopefully what we find is, and you'll resonate, this will mean a lot to yourself, is when they're getting out, if they're getting out and there's nothing wrong with them and they're just getting out for the sake of it, you still got this, you know, I'm a squaddie, you know, I'm hard as nails, I can do what I want, you know, there's, what do you mean man up? I'm manned up already, blah, blah, blah. And it takes some time for them to realise that the second they're out the door, they're on their own. Right. And when that penny drops, sadly, and all of us who have been out for a long time now know that when that penny drops, it's a it's a long drop.
Yeah.
You know, we're not talking a long drop in the middle of a long moor. You know, we're talking a proper, well, actually, reality it is. It's a long drop into shit, isn't it? Let's be honest. Yeah. And unless you're really looking, you've dropped into something really well and you've got a decent course and you've got a career sorted out, many of them are going to become shocked pretty quickly. Because there isn't a lot, you know, once you're out the door, the MOD doesn't care. Yeah.
It's like Steve, my colleague, he says all the time when we do these that you may be listening to this and you don't need it, or you don't need all the charities, and fair enough, that's good. But one day you might, because life can change on a 10 pence piece. Do you know what I mean? And it's just being aware of what is out there. So you mentioned, your first one's on the side of a doctor's surgery. Just remind, and that's in North Wales.
No, sorry, no. That's in Sussex.
That's in Sussex.
Yeah, it's about 2 miles from where I live. Yeah.
So where can these? Tell me about the process. Oh, where can these boxes be put? So obviously, like organisations, businesses, doctors' surgeries, police stations, blah blah blah. Could somebody have it on their house, for example? Right.
Okay. So our sort of. We've had this conversation many times to understand it, and through what we've seen, our standard operating procedure as it stands at the moment is that it needs to be at a 24/7 accessible location that has no physical barriers, no human barriers. What we mean by that is security guards, stuff like that. It needs to be on the outside of the building, ideally secure with some form of CCTV, which we can support with if we need to.
Yeah.
And a car park, which is not restricted in any way, shape or form, or no requirements for paying to park or anything like that. And that's the basics of it. Now, that sort of discounts a lot of houses and places like that, and it discounts retail parks because they're also restricted and things like that. So GP surgeries work really well because they are designed in that way to be open as possible. Village halls potentially can offer themselves up to that as well. Yeah, and I'm sure there's many other locations that can. But the key thing for this is we can't just put them anywhere because there's no point. We need to understand the need first.
Yeah.
Because each one of these pods has 6 boxes in it, so we can do less. We could just do one box if we really want to, but it's pointless and it's going to be about that big, on the wall, which is going to look stupid. And there's no point in that. So our sort of standard kit really is the 6 box pod system.
Yeah.
And then how does that best support the area? So, we asked, can we put them on train stations? Yeah, we could put them on every train station going, but you're probably going to have 1 box in every 5 that are actually going to support a veteran, in reality. And that's just complete waste of money. So, what I've said to, when I had a meeting yesterday with a homeless guy that we're talking to in Basingstoke, who lives on a roundabout, reach out in your local area, find a friendly GP surgery, ideally one that's got some form of armed forces ambassador already, because that means you're already halfway there. Because if they haven't, it means they don't get it, and you're going to struggle. And then get their details, contact us. We are the current surgery we work with. The senior GP there, he's already an ambassador for us, and he's happy to talk to any other GP in any other surgery to explain, how it works for him. The centre manager, who's head of maintenance and everything for our local surgery, he's ex-RAF as well, and he's an ambassador for us as well. So we've got 2 sides of that surgery site scenario where they will happily liaise with others GP surgeries and say, look, Doddle, 4 screws on the wall, doesn't bother us. The receptionist just direct the mailman down the corner. He knows what he's doing. End of story. And that's it.
And is there a cost to the surgery? Well, so say for example, in my local area, we know we've got 4 homeless veterans.
Yeah.
We want to get a SquaddyBox. We've got a surgery that's, we'll do it. Is there a cost to the surgery?
The only cost is to us.
Okay.
We have to purchase the box. We do get it at a very discounted rate. And we are working with partners to have locks donated as well, which once we get the partners are on our website as well. Excuse me, to the individual themselves, there's 0 cost. To the site owners, there's 0 cost. There's no ongoing costs as well, because it's not powered or any way, shape or form. So it's a nondescript grey box that sits on the wall, minding its own business, and can be used by the veterans and blue light people as and when required.
Yeah. And what I'm guessing is, right, we set the box up, our group of homeless veterans come collect their keys, and then they go off and it's working well, and then one of them loses their key. What happens then?
He will then contact my wife, who deals with all that side of it. She's our finance director and manages that side of things. We have an agreement. It's not legally binding, but we have an agreement they signed to say that they won't use the box for anything other than mail. At least that covers us as best as can. It also covers the organisation where the box is as well, to a degree.
Yeah.
Because you don't want people drug dealing and using the GP surgery as a drug stop.
Yeah,
because no one's ever done that, have they?
It's not a good look.
No, and equally the boxes have been designed very cleverly that they will only take mail. Okay. So they've got a thing inside the lip will only let letters go in, which makes it a lot more difficult as well. And equally, people can't get stuff out. So they get their key, off they go. They've got all our contact details. They lose the key. We have spare keys. At the moment, we're analog at the minute, so we're on physical keys at the moment. As we progress down the line, we're talking with a major manufacturer of locks, Abloy, who we want to look at putting electronic locks on them eventually. The bonus of the electronic locks will be that they will tell us when the boxes are being used. It's not for tracking anybody, but at least it gives us the data to say that the box is being actively used. So we've got that as a statistic to say, actually, we have got boxes, they are in use, by individuals, and they are regularly used, which then helps us with our cause going back to people and saying, look, it works.
Yeah.
At the moment, we don't know what mail goes in the boxes, when it goes, and when they collect it and whatever. It's down to And that's the other thing as well, is we're going to try to develop the boxes so the individual will get an alert to tell them they got mail. So that will be done through, my technical background. I'm trained in electronics and all sorts of varied things. I've got lots of friends. So between us, we are looking at doing a future box whereby it will alert the individual they've got mail, literally on a text message.
Yeah.
What we would like to do is work with phone suppliers and to try and get mobile phones donated to the veterans as well. So even if it's the basic, even if you go back to the old Nokia 3310 type scenario where it just sends you a text message and says you got mail, you got physical mail, that then, from a safeguarding perspective, has a good knock-on effect as well, because it reduces the amount of times they need to go to the box to check they've got mail as well.
Yeah,
they only need to go there then when they need to go there, which is great for everybody. But we can't do it all at once. We got to develop this process. I was guilty, as most people, of trying to run before I can walk, and because I've got the team around me, I have reins on literally to hold me back, because I'd have a massive box, everything if I could do, but we just can't do it.
That's the superpower that is ADHD.
100%.
So just going back to the ADHD. So I was diagnosed in probably 2022. And
same as me.
When the diagnosis came in, it was like, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Penny drops.
Yeah. And interestingly, so the psychiatrist said that a high percentage of adults that have been late or diagnosed late with ADHD are actually in some form of addiction, because the way the brain works and it settles the brain. So it took me, I was diagnosed when I was still using, so it took me some time to be medicated, and I'm now medicated, and the change is unreal. Like I'm very conscious, like even now, so I can't sit completely still, but without being medicated, I'd be up and down like a Jack in the Box. But I'm just wondering your experience, because every man and his dog says that they've got ADHD. In my mind, they may have, they may be on the spectrum of ADHD somewhere, but I doubt everyone that says they've got it has. But what's been your experience with being diagnosed? And
so my diagnosis came through getting my son diagnosed. We knew 100% my son had ADHD, and I'm a daughter as well. And we struggled getting him diagnosed quite a few years back, around sort of 2019 type. We knew he had it anyway at school, and they said he had it at school, but never formally diagnosed at school, which massively let him down, unfortunately, because they didn't get the support he needed. 2019, we started getting him diagnosed. Eventually, I got him diagnosed in 2020. But as I was going through all that, I never even contemplated the fact I had ADHD. And then when we were going through the process, I was talking to the sort of the local medic at our GP surgery who was talking about it, and he went, "You realise you've got ADHD, don't you?" I went, "Nah, I am. No, I'm just a bit, wild." He went, "No, you have 100% got ADHD. You said you probably even got some form of autism as well." I said, "Oh, right, okay." I said, I just sort of laughed it off, because I thought, "No, I'm just, just a bit out there." So I thought, sod this, I'm going to have a proper diagnosis. So I went through the whole Psychiatry UK thing that a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And the doctor came back and went, "Yep, you definitely got ADHD without a doubt." And my missus went, "Yeah, of course you have. You've always bloody had ADHD. I knew that for years." And he's like, "All right, so why didn't nobody tell me?" But like you said, it's like a massive revelation, isn't it? Because you go, people telling you got it, but then being properly diagnosed is two different things.
Yeah.
And maybe yourself do the same, but in my time when I've worked with the cadets and stuff like that, and all the people I've come across, I tell them it's a superpower.
Yeah, 100%.
Literally gives me the ability to solve problems rapidly on the spot. And I know that's why when I look back at the careers I've had, that's when I've excelled in high pressure scenarios, because I've been able to go in there and go, right. And it's like you see on some of these TV programs where they do it, and then you see they go into mind mapping, and you see the image screen. And it's literally like that, isn't it? You can go, right, well, if I did that, and that would sort that. And then you say it to somebody and they go, how did you work that out? Well, it's obvious. Well, no, it's not bloody obvious. Well, else I'd have done it, you know? And, you know, I embrace it massively to the point where my ADHD has made me obsessive about it, unfortunately. And I do say that. And that's one of the reasons I'm going to university. So I'm going to university to study education, special needs and disabilities, because we're finding a vast majority of the homeless people we talk to have got ADHD. Or some form of neurodiversity, and that's some of the reasoning why they're homeless, because they've gone from that really structured thing where they've been told to do how to do it, and that's what ADHD sometimes needs. You need that guidance and that strict regime, and then it's gone, and then it's just gone. What happens? Where do I go? And if they've got the right family structure behind them, they've got the right friends around them, they cope. They go into jobs. They choking apart, muster through, literally. They go through the process and they go about their lives just thinking something's not quite right, but I don't know what it is. It's like you feel like you're an alien body type thing, if that makes sense. And and then I'm finding more and more people now. I can spot someone with ADHD now 100%, and that's one thing you find with ADHD. If you've got true ADHD, you're very perceptive and you can read people really quickly. And you realize that they are. And Jodie, who works with us, one of the directors, she's got ADHD, and we bounce off each other. You'll have 20 conversations in the same conversation, and people look at you and go, "How the hell are you keeping on track?" You know. And we've gone over all these things, and you know, and like now, I'm talking a lot, but I'm also mentally struggling to keep myself on track as well all the time, because it's very tiring as well, mentally tiring, as you probably know, to try and stay on track of what you're talking about. But I believe, you know, there's parts of me believe that actually we are a higher level of individual because we can see what we can see. You know, I feel sorry in some way for people who are neurotypical, as they call it, because they don't have that advantage to be able to solve those problems really quickly. And they have to use other means of doing it, where we've got that advantage. And somebody made a comment to me the other day which made me laugh. And this was from a professor, and she said, "You do realise a high percentage of special forces people are neurodiverse, don't you? And they're not called special forces for no reason."
There you go.
You know, and I don't want to upset any special forces guys out there, but you know, it is what it is, and it's a superpower, guys. You know, embrace it if you have. If you haven't, good for you. But
unlucky.
Unlucky. You know, because you see them, they're either autistic or neuro or ADHD or any of the other ones that are out there. And there's lots of variations of it. Be proud. I would be. I am. You know. But does that sort of help answer your question around that side of things?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No, I just think like people say, I don't want to be labelled or anything like that. Don't get me wrong, I don't go around going, "Hi, my name's Stu and I've got ADHD," because I don't think people need to know. But to me, it's like, I love it. Like, don't get me wrong, sometimes I can get, as you say, it's tiring. Fortunately, my partner, having that family unit, supports me, because if I was a single man, I'd be on my computer for like days on end, like researching veteran stuff, like it. So it's not just the medication I need to. I've had different types of therapy to help me ground myself, but I wouldn't change it for the world, and I see it as a superpower, and I'm glad hearing the same from you. Like I really think I'm a big advocate of if you think you've got some sort of neurodivergence, don't go around the pub just telling everyone. Actually go get it checked out, because if you had a broken leg, you'd go to the doctor and get it looked at, or if you thought you had a broken leg. And it's the same, and it doesn't have to be a label. It's not a bad thing. If it's managed correctly, then you'll excel.
Sadly, it's classed as a disability, which has its advantages in some way, shape or form. But however, it's not a disability. I think it's an extra ability.
Exactly.
And, you know, and I say to anybody, like you just said, is don't be scared of getting diagnosed, because actually it'll probably change your life and for the better, because you've got a really unique ability to be able to solve problems very
Yeah.
quickly, and that's really good. And the irony is, if you look back in history at some of the really famous people, look at Alan Turing, for instance. He was autistic and God knows whatever else, and without him, we would probably be all speaking German.
Exactly.
You know, and no disrespect to the Germans, but you know, in the context of what it was then,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
and you've even got GCHQ now who are recognising neurodiversity.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I'm a member of the Institute of Neurodiversity, who aren't very well known, ironically, but they are one of the very few institutes in this area that are recognised by NATO.
Yeah.
I've been sort of asked to sort of carry the mantle with regards to defence, security, and intelligence side of things. And one of the jobs they want me to do is try and engage with the Ministry of Defence and the militaries to try and help them understand what an advantage neurodiversity is to them. You know, and how I do that, I don't know. And if somebody's listening to this and want to reach out to me, by all means, give me a shout, because, you know, if you've got neurodiverse people in your regiments, your corps, or whatever else, use them, because they really can solve problems very quickly.
Yeah.
You know, they're the guys you need out there on the ground, sorting it out, you know, without limited resources, but solving problems with random things, you know.
Yeah.
But
so bringing it back to SquaddyBox, what do you need? What's the future? I know you've spoken about the development of the or improvements to the boxes, but how do you want people to get involved? What can people do for you?
We have had lots of people want to volunteer, and at the moment we're not in a position to be able to have volunteers. And don't get me wrong, we will be in the future once we start to get boxes out to locations better. And by all means, you know, send us your name, we'll hold your details. If we don't get back to you straight away, we apologise, but we've got you. There's only, when we say 5 of us, there isn't really 5 of us. There is 5 of us, but 3 are working full time, and the 2 of us are doing what we can when we can.
Yeah.
And I start university on Monday as well, so I've got that to deal with. But what we really need is, we need organisations to get back behind us to support us from a funding perspective, to help us raise the money to buy the boxes, to then appropriately deploy the boxes where they need to go. And then support us as well with regards getting us out there at the varied shows and events that go on, to get people to see SquaddyBox. We've done a couple of them which we've supported ourselves at the moment. So we did the Military Odyssey show in Kent, which was brilliant. We met hundreds of really fantastic people there. We raised a small amount of money there. And, you know, unfortunately, we have a really knackered old gazebo and a couple of plastic signs, which I think you can see behind me is the sort of extent of the sort of PR marketing we have at the moment. You know, anyone can support us that way, that would be great. You know, so we've got a marketing company out there who can help us with regarding signage, that would be good. A gazebo company, we could do a decent gazebo. We're going to be at the Battles Through History event on the 3rd, 4th and 5th of October in West Sussex. Again, trying to get our name out of there as well. And don't get us wrong, we are being supported by some really good organisations, you know, through LOCKS. We got conversations this afternoon with another organisation to see how they can support us. But that's sort of really it in a minute. Our holy grail is to have a SquaddyBox in every town and city that needs it. Not just every town and city, because not every town and city does need it. And know that our name is out there, that we are working with as many organisations who we can enable better, to take more pressure off them, so that their resources are used better to actually support people better. Because, you know, the reality is, if we have a homeless person, we give them an address. We're not giving them a physical location. We accept that, but we're giving them a physical address.
Yeah.
That means they can then start applying for benefits and anything else, which means they are raising their money themselves, which takes the pressure off any homeless organisations that are supporting them. It means they can then raise a deposit or something. And then when they do find a place, they've got some money to start a leg up in that process.
Yeah.
Where before, they've got nothing and everyone's panicking and running around like blue-ass flies trying to get them in somewhere quickly. This reduces that pressure.
Yeah.
And this is across the board. You know, so we can help everybody, but we need everybody to sort of help us at the same time.
Yeah, I
You know,
get
get
that.
our name out there and stuff like that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Dean, I will obviously share it to death.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for your time. Thank you for doing what you're doing in the veteran space and blue light space, because I'm learning every day that there's a massive crossover there. But yeah, thank you.
Can I add one more thing?
Of course you can.
We started officially in July this year.
Yep.
We've already been nominated for 2 awards with the Veterans Awards 2025.
There you go.
I'm finalists in 2 categories. So if you look on their website, it'll tell you I can't remember what they are. I think one was most entrepreneurial idea or something. So I've got to get my head around of being proud of that. I know it sounds weird because I've been used to being the grey man in the background.
Yeah.
But I want to thank the Veterans Awards people and everybody else who supported us. You know, that speaks volumes in its own right.
Yeah.
We're trying to raise the funds to get to that awards show because we just ain't got the money.
Yeah.
It'd be great, even if we're just finalists and we get to it, it'd be brilliant.
What an opportunity to network.
Exactly. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Cool. All right. Thank you very much, Dean.
Thank you.
Catch you later.
Have a good day. Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers. Thanks.